Yeah, if you share, I can throw it up.
Let me see here. Can you see?
Overjoin. Whoa, look
Wow.
at this. Welcome to the
So,
CNFT space, Mackenzie.
um, yeah, I didn't really get to fully grasp Unreal 4 while I was working on this because it's. If anyone who's ever worked with UE4, you know immediately how lost and kind of consumed you can become when you start working on projects. Whether it's like controlling, mapping, scripting, and everything. Like, there's so much to delve into that I don't think it's possible to learn it in a year. Let alone this project for me was only like a week. So high intensity. So moving really quickly, I was able to kind of produce a set of renderings as well as some gaming mechanics. So this was for a game, based on a studio project that I'd done, mostly about like a. It's very convoluted about how I got to this kind of rendering set, but essentially we started the studio from a board game that was all kind of hand-picked notations about like storytelling. So someone had stories about robot fightings, like tournaments for robots, and another one was like a whole thing about cloning, which is where I guess my group got kind of placed into. And so this whole thing was about a facility for cloning, which I won't go too much into it because it is very bizarre. But essentially, where it brought me to was making a week long video game where I get to control the scientists who are kind of running the facility, and the clones had just recently broken out of their vats. And so the whole point of the game is to collect enough batteries to restart the teleporter and to kind of safely get the hell out of Dodge.
And just to be clear with everyone, this was a architectural studio project.
Yeah.
Right?
Oh yeah, to
That's
be
crazy.
completely honest, this was a little bit more about social kind of dilemmas and like the ethics behind architecture than it was about the actual idea of architecture in itself. But not being said, like I had to kind of I guess culminate all of that together into one kind of cohesive thing, and that's kind of where this all kind of came out to be. But yeah.
Can you? Yeah, it's really. I love the colors. Can you talk about, based on the images that were shown, how much of that was modeled by you, and how much? I mean, you had time constraints. Modeling is difficult, and usually a large part of where the time goes, at least from my experience. So how much? I know Unreal has like a really good store or marketplace of free things that you can sort of put in and sort of work with. So how much was it you modeling, and how much was it of using sort of the marketplace assets?
I would say it was because this project was also not 100% mine. I had group mates, but for the rendering set, that was all me. So in terms of getting the actual model in, that was between the four of us, or excuse me, three of us. And for the rendering set, in terms of getting assets, there wasn't a whole lot of assets that I actually wanted to use for this thing. I kind of wanted to bare bone kind of run through with this set at least. So a lot of it was just completely going in and delving into UE4's massive selection of YouTube tutorials. YouTube was my friend in this class because she didn't really no shame to her, she's a great teacher, but she wasn't a teaching type. She wanted us to kind of learn on our own. So
Right.
So a huge portion of producing those the meshes and everything was generally a lot like kit bashing from projects that I've had, which I love doing, is just grabbing a bunch of things that I've done in the past and scaling it to like abnormally terrible scales and then just taking chunks out of it. And getting in terms of like a lot of the reflections, which reflection mapping and all that stuff in its own can take, super amount of time of just getting everything right. There was a lot of precedents that I was looking at in terms of how to kind of get that going, and a lot of forums, asking around on forums, a lot of late nights, a lot of coffee pots. But, I mean, generally speaking, yeah, I think it's a very amazing program to get completely and utterly lost in. And if that's your thing, then absolutely go for it.
Well,
it's intimidating, and I think that's why I like it.
Let's get lost in it together.
Let's do it. Yeah.
No, honestly though, so going back, thank you for talking about that tool too, because it's interesting. One quick question though for you again. What do you think was the hardest, or the thing that sort of limited you, or maybe not limited you, but it was kind of an annoyance to figure out with regard to rendering the final image?
Ironically, rendering was actually kind of the fun aspect of it, and it was also the last minute kind of tinkering aspect of the project that I actually enjoyed the most. It was more so the most time consuming thing I did was mapping, animating and mapping characters is just super time consuming, because the compiler and everything, you might not always know what you did wrong, and especially if you're learning a software in a matter of weeks, in my case like 1 week, it was like nightmare fuel to kind of figure out what was going on. So there was one point my entire file got deleted, and so I had to rescript everything from scratch a few days before the final. So there was a lot of just nonsense and shenanigans that went on. But generally speaking, like if you're getting into it, the rendering aspect is pretty fun. Sometimes it's not so straightforward. Like maybe getting into rendering with like Lumion versus UE4, there's a huge difference. One's a click of a button, one is like you actually have to figure out every single setting to get every single lighting aspect correct. My case, I kind of did a workaround where I worked more on the animated part of trying to make a movie, because I had no clue how to get a full rendered shot, and so I actually did a movie and took the still frames from that movie.
So that was easier than rendering out the still frames?
Ironically, yeah. It was actually substantially better. I don't know why, and it's just my lack of experience, but trying to get a movie versus just trying to get a full rendered out photograph was just intensely difficult.
Yeah, I would say if I had to assume, that's because Unreal is built for real time, and that's why making a video is a lot easier than just sort of taking a image. But
yeah,
that's cool.
That's awesome.
For sure. But I definitely there was a lot of funny shenanigans in that, and I definitely liked doing that aspect, because I was also kind of forced to showcase some of my music, which I don't think I tend to like to do, mostly because it's a lot of ambient instrumental, and so the more I got into the projects, the more I was able to create these instrumentals for the games that I was making, and it actually started to feel more visceral as more of a movie maker than I would just having the standalone musical component by itself. So it was pretty cool.
Gotcha.
Mm-hmm.